and it's called Love is Not Easily Offended. So we'll start. Okay, this is of course 1 Corinthians 13:5. Of course, we know the whole beautiful love hymn, as we like to call it. But in verse 5, we read this in the last portion: love is not easily offended. Well, wouldn't that be a change around here? Because nowadays everybody seems to want to be offended, and they want to be triggered, and they want to let you know that they are offended. Well, it is very counterproductive, of course, but we have to put things in the right perspective, and let's not take the bait. Just because someone says that they are offended doesn't mean that they have the right to be offended. And sometimes, and we are going to go more in depth about that, sometimes when they feel offended, that's because they feel that the message is for them, but they don't like to hear it. How about that? So someone posted, this is how this message came to be for me. Someone posted a blanket statement that made me think, and this is what it said on Facebook. When a person tells you that you hurt them, you don't get the, how is this? Okay. When a person tells you that you hurt them, you don't get to decide that you didn't. Let me just reiterate that. When a person tells you that you hurt them, you don't get to decide that you didn't. In other words, you don't have the right to say that you did not offend them or you didn't hurt them. And sometimes we just leave these comments go, and we just leave these posts go. But you know what? If someone makes a statement like this, a lot of people are clicking on it because it was posted on a famous site. Apparently it's a quote by someone famous, but it's a stupid quote. I don't know whoever said that. It doesn't matter who said that. It's still stupid. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to let it pass by, because if the person, or if somebody puts a quote out there that actually sounds true, but it's not true, but people are reading it, it leaves a deposit in them, and they will remember this. And then next time someone says, I'm hurt, I'm offended, I'm this, I'm that, and you're a bad person, and you're a horrible person, they will remember this quote. I said, you know what? I don't have the right to say that I didn't. So I said, if the lie is put out there, we have to counter it with the truth. So if you feel ever led by the Holy Spirit, I'm not saying you have to spend your time on the internet and time on Facebook and commenting left, right, and center. And I by no means do I want to encourage you to fight with people, because it's not about fighting. It's not about fighting. But when I see something that's blatantly lie, maybe with a hint of truth in it, and that's the most destructive, because it sounds true, it sounds nice, it sounds almost good, but it's a lie nevertheless. And if you leave it there without countering it with the truth, then you're not doing your job, because this is one of the ways to shine, is to blind the lies with truth. That's how you fight lies. You blind it with the truth. So I stopped for a moment and I made a comment. I said, hold your horses, meaning, oh, wait a second. These days, some unstable people feel hurt and throw a tantrum like 2-year-olds just for attention, even when no one hurts them. So the above statement is an irrational blanket statement. And of course, a lot of people liked it. And it's interesting that up to the point where I made this counter statement, nobody dared to call the truth. Nobody called their bluffs. They just said, whatever, I'm just going to be quiet just to hold the peace. No, sometimes you don't hold your peace. Sometimes you have to speak the truth. So I made a statement and everybody liked it. They were like, oh, thank you for saying this. Yes, this is exactly how I feel. So sometimes you have to take the first step. You take the first step, you step out and you speak the truth. So I'm going to go on because we've had a lot to cover. Obviously, it's a vast subject. So, and very timely, I must say, unfortunately. So love does not traffic. I'm going to read it from the Amplified, the Passion Translation, actually. Love does not traffic in shame and disrespect, nor selfishly seek its own honor. Love is not easily irritated. That's connected. Love is not easily irritated or quick to take offense. In other words, love is not easily offended. The Bible talks about being rooted and grounded in love. If you are rooted and grounded in love, you are not unstable. By default, if you are rooted and grounded, you imagine yourself like the palm tree in the wind. A palm tree doesn't break, no matter how hard the wind blows. We all have these pictures about hurricanes in, places like Florida and other places. After the hurricane's gone, maybe other things might be, destroyed or debris left, right, and center and breakage and this, that, but the palm trees usually stay the same and they stay unfazed because they don't break in the wind. They mostly like sway. They know how to preserve themselves by God's grace, of course, because they are rooted and grounded in a solid ground. This is what it is for us. If we are rooted and grounded in love, we are not easily offended. We are not easily swayed by people's reactions to whatever we say or however we look. So how many people do you know who everyone has to tiptoe around because the person gets easily offended, and everybody knows that? I mean, we all know people like that, many of our family members. Isn't that interesting? And even though they're Christians, they still like to play this game that they're easily offended. Well, you can be easily offended, but that doesn't really going to faze me because I know what to do, and this is what I'm going to do. So sometimes even one wrong look is enough for that person to be miserable and just lets everybody knows that it's not okay. He or she feels offended, mostly women actually. And interestingly enough, this very same person or these type of persons who like to be easily triggered and easily offended, they have no problem offending others. They have no problem hurting other people. But when it comes to them, when they feel hurt, then they just have to let you know, right? So I think it kind of goes both ways. If you feel like you're too sensitive to be hurt, maybe you should be too sensitive to hurt others, but somehow it doesn't work that way. Even with little children, I see that, some people are, even in a very early age, they tend to display their various personality disorders. But the good thing about children that they can be trained well. And hopefully that's not your story. Okay. So a lot of people are very touchy and they are just looking for things to get offended by. And they're just looking for things they feel hurt by or triggered by. You have to be very aware of that. How do we handle people like this? Now, that's a good question because we are meeting them everywhere we go. First of all, don't take the bait. Don't take the bait. Getting offended is a choice. Most of the time, people who constantly looking for things to get offended about are immature attention seekers. And I'm talking from experience. They are just wasting your time. Someone with a focus and purpose for life, like you and I, is not looking for offenses. Even if the offense was real, even if it was intentional from someone's part, we just move on to more important things. We don't waste our time feeling down or feeling offended or feeling hurt. That's an immature behavior. So right there, that's not what you do. Second, people taking offense does not necessarily mean that you were offensive. Someone can be offended without you having been offensive. Again, we'll talk about choice. The person chooses to be offended. That's what happens. If you're looking for faults, faults are all you're going to find, even in the most beautiful places. So they are the problem, and they have to take responsibility for their negative feelings. It's not you, it's them. When you understand that someone can be offended without having to take ownership of those feelings, it allows you to stay calm and engage in conversation. So you understand that this offense was not real. The person just took it the wrong way. Number 3, offense is deeply personal. Being offended is not an objective reality. There is no measuring stick of offense. Being offended is an internal response based on how a person interprets a situation or words. It's highly subjective. It's not something you can prove or disprove. If someone is offended, they are offended. That's their choice. They made a choice to be offended. So they made a choice based on how they think, how they have interpreted the situation, or even just a comment. So what do you do when someone insists that you have offended them? Well, there are several options, obviously. Number one, you can contradict the offended person. And you can tell them, don't be ridiculous. You aren't actually offended. You are just putting it on. That's not a very good response, but this is one of the responses people sometimes take. Number two, option two, rebut the offensiveness of the statements. For example, there's nothing wrong with what I said. It's just a joke. It's not offensive. I have no problem with this situation that I just described. You know, it's all on you. This strategy is not likely to result in sudden change of heart from the offended person. So it's not a good strategy. It might actually keep digging herself into a hole. Option three, write the person off. We can often do that, and we can very easily do that in the Facebook. We just delete the person. Yeah. We just we just block the person, and sometimes that's the very good solution if the person is trying to offend you personally or trying to make it personal. I sometimes block people if they are using foul language, or they are being it's not the right spirit, and the person is really looking for fault. It's not an innocent situation. The person is really looking for fault. So just don't waste your time. Sometimes blocking people is a very good choice. So writing people off, it's one of the options you can do. But let's say you are preaching, and that's a very very reasonable. Very often we meet this situation because we do speak in front of people. So let's say you are not in a position that you can avoid the person. You actually have to face the situation. So we're trying to handle the situations in person as much as possible. So let's say you were preaching about something and the person misunderstood it, or he thought or she thought that you were talking about them, but you were just making a statement, and they internalize, oh, the person is talking about me. Again, it's a choice. They made a choice. You didn't call out their names. They just made a choice to make it personal, but that wasn't personal. So option four, roll over, give in, feel crappy about yourself. You can just say, oh, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that I offended you. And basically just give in to the person, even though the person may not even have the right to be offended. So let's just look at the better options. First, confirm your suspicion by sharing what you see. For instance, it looks like I have offended you. So this way, the person has a chance, yes, you have offended me. Or the person said, you know what, it's just my face. I'm not offended. I'm fine. And just walk away. Second, if the person admits being offended, you can start by saying, it wasn't my intention to offend you, or I didn't realize that was offensive to you. And maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe you mentioned, obviously we travel around the world, so we have to deal with a lot of cultures, a lot of different ethnicities. And as much as we like to inform ourselves before we travel, sometimes, of course, you can miss some things that could be specific to that area, to that region, to that country, to that continent that you may have missed. Maybe it's a cultural thing. So you have to clarify that you didn't offend them on that ground. Number three, ask a question to get the person talking. How did you interpret what I said? In other words, what did you hear I said? Because maybe the person didn't understand the words we're using. Maybe the person's English or whatever language you're talking, maybe the person didn't understand you correctly. Maybe it's a genuine misunderstanding. That's also possible, but the person misunderstood it and took it the wrong way. How many times, oh, you just took it the wrong way. We heard it all the time. And then, you guys don't talk to each other for years, and you don't even know that the other person is offended, but he harbors or she harbors that offense within, and you don't even know about it. So it's good to clarify things when you think it is worth it. So when you ask a question, what did you hear I said? Because maybe it's just some of the words that the person literally misheard or completely misunderstood, or maybe because you were using English and the English is not the first language of that person, for instance, maybe the person doesn't speak well English. Maybe, you know, it can happen all the time. It's just a genuine misunderstanding and misinterpretation. Number 4, listen for clues and try to figure out the source of their concern. So maybe it's not even what they say it is. Maybe it's something behind. Maybe something happened to them in the past that was triggered by what you said. What is the matter? Okay, what is it that matters to that person that your comment or behavior didn't mesh with? So why was this clashing between the personalities or between the words or between what they were interpreting? Number 5, validate the person by reflecting what you heard. If they are revealing something about their perspective, be sure to show them that you got it, you understand. I get it. You are tired, and maybe you misunderstood what I said. You understood something different. You heard something different. That's why the Bible talks about be careful what you hear and how you hear. So, you know, clarification always helps a situation. Okay, number 6, share your side. If you want to, take the opportunity to share where you're coming from. I guess I was not reacting to how much of your time I used on going over financial things, for instance. Or maybe I didn't clarify in my speech or in my teaching what I meant by this. So you can actually have this nice conversation where the person can tell you what they heard and why it seemed offensive to them. And then you can say, you know what, that's not what I meant. This is where I'm coming from within the context. This is what I referred to. Clarification is a good thing. Number 7, learn and adopt. Was there something you now understand that causes you to reconsider your position? So maybe you did say something offensive to that person without you knowing. So maybe you can, when the person clarifies it, maybe now you can change it by the time you next go to the microphone, and then maybe you can avoid the same situation. That's a good thing to learn. Maybe it is a cultural issue with the person, so you can learn something new. That's always a good thing. Number 8, thank the person for the conversation. Even if you don't agree with them, you can be just very simply, very polite. Thank you for helping me see your point of view. That's it. That will be enough. The problem is that we are becoming very polarized lately. Unfortunately, we are not giving ourselves the opportunity to learn something or work through it because we are too easily offended by someone and we are taking the offense. So whether it's you who is taking the offense or maybe someone else is taking offense with what you said or how you dressed or how you expressed yourself, it's good to have clarity. So when someone is offended by something you said, you just push through because you are clarifying the situation, and then you can both learn something new and walk away with a happy heart. And that's what I wanted to share today. Thank you for listening.